Hi, thanks for joining me. My name is Stuart. I'm the osteopath at We Train Harpenden, also personal trainer. I'm going to be taking you through tonight's core class. We have four main elements. There's a warm-up, then we go into progressive levels of intensity for core, finishing in a final circuit. We're going to be working on stabilising spine, shoulder girdle, as well as we think about our core with our six-pack. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to go into reverse lunges. So join in. As you step back, try and keep the weight loaded on the front foot. Ideally, because of warming up, we get some length in the muscle on your back knee to brush the ground, but don't drop in. Ideally, if you've got a mat that I'm on, you can just contact the ground and protect your knee. So keep a nice tall spine. Go nice and slow because we're still warming up. Doing about 20 reps or so. Trying to think about as you drive up, you're driving through the hips. As I step back, I'm keeping my weight through my heel, and I'm not letting my knee cross forward, but the center of my knee is over the center of my foot. Let's do 4 more, and then we're going to go into a stretch. Okay, first stretch, I'm going to work on the hamstrings. This is a track stretch. So we're going to start in this position. Hands are lined up with our toes. We're going to keep our head down and simply straighten your front leg so you feel a stretch in the back of the hamstring. And we come back down again and repeat. Each time, you try to go a little bit higher, get the leg a little bit straighter. And if you can, try and keep your torso on your thigh. If you're more flexible, go to keep the chin tucked. Obviously, work to your own range of motion. Last repetition, let's change sides. So, my foot's just in front of my knee, fingers lined up with my toes, slowly come up. So what we're looking to do is, as we do more repetitions, to increase the range of motion slightly. Okay, last repetition. Okay, next we're going to a kneeling adductor stretch. So one knee on the ground, one foot in front. The heel is lined up with the knee, hands in front. We're going to keep this leg nice and straight. We're going to push back, keeping our spine flat until we feel stretching the adductors, the inside of the thigh on the straight leg. We come back out, take a little breath, exhale as you push back in the stretch. Try to avoid your back rounding. Obviously go to your own range of motion. You're just looking for the first tissue barrier and relax into that. Go a little bit further each time. Last couple. And then we change sides. So again, my heel is going to be lined up with my knee. Then I'm going to push back. From the first tissue barrier, so a bit tight that side, so I won't go quite as far. But then as I start releasing, I will go a little bit further each stretch. Again, I'm keeping my back flat, not letting my lumbar spine flex. Last couple. A little bit further each time. And slowly out. Okay, next one. From there, we're going to go into next level warm-up. Go into some squats. So, have your feet approximately the width of the crease of your armpit. That should be lining up with the inside of the heels. And from there, arms for counterbalance. We're going to push our knees out slightly, create space for our pelvis. The feet can be facing forward or slightly turned out. Ideally, we're going to drop to the point where our crease of our hip is level with our knee. As you can see in my tracksuit, the lines of my trousers are parallel to the ground. Obviously work again to your own range of motion. And if you're sort of a bit stiffer in the hamstrings, lower back, don't go quite as low, but as you warm up, you can maybe go a little bit deeper in the movement as you start to warm up some of the tissues. Little pause at the bottom, and again, obviously I'm keeping my lower back neutral. I'm not letting my back flex in the bottom position. Last 5. 3, okay, next one, into a hip flexor stretch. I'm going to start in a lunge position. From here, go to the first tissue barrier, stretch to the front of the thigh. We're going to squeeze the glute, then we're going to relax and try and creep a bit further forward. Hold the next tissue barrier, again squeeze the glutes, I'm contracting the buttocks, using my finger to make sure I've got a contraction, and relax, try and edge a bit further forward. And one more time, squeeze, relax, and drop a bit further forward. When you feel there's no more range to gain from the front of the thigh, we're going to add to it. We're going to reach the ceiling. We're going to slightly flex away. I'm going to use the arm against the knee to help me rotate my rib cage towards the side that we're stretching. So this is rotating some of the deeper components of the hip flexors where attached to the lumbar spine. Again, breathe, relax. You can increase any of the components. The hip can come forward, a little bit more side bend, a little bit more rotation. When we come out of this stretch, use the front leg to push you back. I'm going to change sides. So again, we start in the lunge. First tissue barrier, front of the thigh. Squeeze the glutes. Relax. Go to the next tissue barrier. Again, squeeze the glute. Relax, creep further forward. And again, one final time, squeeze, relax and lengthen. Then we're going to add to it. So again, I'll reach. I'm going to side bend away from the side I'm stretching. I use the elbow against my thigh to help rotate my rib cage towards the side I'm stretching. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to relax into the stretch. At any point, you can increase in the vectors, the pelvis can come further forward, a little bit more side bend, a little bit more rotation. Again, when you come out of it, use the front leg to push you back. Okay, next component. We're going to go into a rotation. We're going to go into a couple of movements to mobilize across the spine and the hips. First one we're going to do is called an iron cross. We're going to lay face up. We're going to lift the leg up. We're going to rotate towards the hand on the floor. And lift, and the opposite side. Now, how far you go up, depending on flexibility. So you may only just be coming across the level with your hips. That's fine. If you can go a bit further though, so next one I'll lift a little bit higher to my hand. Try and keep the opposite shoulder on the ground, so as I rotate to my right, I'm keeping my left shoulder down. If it lifts a little bit, that's fine, but don't just let it peel off the ground. Do your best to relax the shoulder girdle, so you're mobilizing through the spine. Last couple of reps. If you want, you can pause the last one, take a breath and relax there. Let that shoulder drop back down. Last rep, a lift, I come across. I can even support my foot with the hand, hold it, take a breath and relax into the stretch. Come back. From there we're going to turn over, we're going to do the opposite movement, a scorpion. We're going to be face down again. The side I rotate to, I'm going to turn my head the opposite way. So in this position, if I rotate to my left, I look to the right. I come across again, try and keep your torso close to the ground. And as you become a little bit more mobile, a bit more warmed up, you can start reaching the hand a little bit higher up towards the foot. Other way around, in fact. The foot towards the hand is even better. Hang out for a moment. So you're stretching the front of the hip as we do this. We're also getting more movement in the lumbar spine and the thoracic spine. Last couple. Add a little pause. Breathe, relax. Last one. Okay. First part mopped up. Next, in some direct core work. We're going to start off at a low level. We're going to start thinking about how we actually engage our core. So we're going to be thinking about ribs are coming towards the pelvis, so some of the cues will be opposite the pelvis towards the ribs. But we're going to be controlling the spine, that's the key point here. So first of all, basic crunch. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to just slowly crunch up. We're keeping the lower back flat on the ground. The ribs will lift off the ground, but the bottom rib will just be on the floor still. So as you come up, think about pulling your rib cage towards your pelvis. Nice breath in, little exhalation as you come up, rebreathing the way down. Now this is the 4th week I've done this program, so each week's been getting a little bit more complex. So there's a bit more rotation in today's movement, and there's more intensity as well. We're going to add to that, we're going to come into our crunch, and we're going to side bend. So we're going to hold the top position of the crunch, and then we're going to side bend to the left and the right. Only go as far as you feel comfortable, and then we drop back down between reps. So crunch, flex sideways. So now we're incorporating more obliques. We're also having to use some mobility in the spine, what we call side bending. Last repetition, crunch, side, side. Notice it's quite slow and controlled because we're in the warm-up. Next movement is going to be a side plank with a hip lift. There's 2 options. I'll do a few of each. We can start on the knees. We're going to lift up onto knees and elbow. Here we're going to try and stretch. So we lower our hips towards the ground, we don't relax, and we lift back up. So keep the pelvis facing forward, touch the hip to the ground, and feel that you push away from the floor, drive the elbow down to create lift. Now if this is really easy for you, progression could be, you come onto the feet, we lower. Now if you're on the feet, any of the variations of side planks, we have a lot more load to the shoulders. So I suggest if you have any shoulder problems or you feel unstable, you stick with the versions throughout this workout on the knees. Let's change sides. Again, I'm going to do a few of the easier ones to get a bit more warmed up. So I lift up, pelvis forward, chest open, lower the hip, contact the ground, drive up. Again, you can go to the next version up. We can come to the feet if you wish. But again, pay attention to your shoulder. History of shoulder problems, it may be safer to stick with the more conservative version on the knees. Last few. Okay, next one, we're going to go into a quadrupen. Quite a low level exercise. We're going to be thinking about some of the deeper stabilizers of the spine. The goal on this movement is to keep your spine parallel to the ground. When we lift the opposite arm and leg, avoid the pelvis rotating or the shoulder girdle rotating. So in this position, I'm going to lift the opposite arm and leg simultaneously. I'm not reaching up to the ceiling. Think about reaching away, lengthening the body out. As we come up, we should feel the glutes engaging. The lumbar spine in here, it does not extend, it just stays in a neutral position. If you're tight in the shoulders, just to go to the height your shoulder feels comfortable. If you start trying to lift too high, you'll start rotating the thoracic spine. So example might be if I start trying to lift up here, we're not going to get the desired outcome. This is about avoiding rotation. So we're trying to turn on some of those deep stabilizing muscles in the spine. Last couple of reps. Also think about as you lower your leg down and control the pelvis on the way down. A lot of people lose the alignment of the spine as they lower the leg. Okay, next one from there, we're going to go into a cook hip lift. So, in the previous workout, we've done a combination of the 2-foot bridge, which is easy. Today, we're going to do a single leg only. Key points are always in the hip lift, though, to stop you pushing too much of your quads and to help you engage your glutes. You can lift the heels up, toes up. So we're pushing through the heels. Now, a cook hip lift. You hold one leg, you can just stabilize your own strength. You drive through the heel and control back down. Again, try and keep the pelvis level, avoid it rotating. Just do half a dozen reps. So because we've stretched our hip flexors already, it should help us get a bit more range of motion from the anterior aspect, the front of our hip. So the key to this workout is the sequence of the exercises. Last couple. Again, I'm driving through the heel, keep the toes off the ground, and then change. Lift the toes up, either hold the leg. First, I prefer just to support my leg in the air and have my arms on the ground, bit of balance. Just relax the palms up. So we're just tilting up onto the top of the shoulders. Little pause at the top. Nice control on the way down, so working through both phases, the concentric, which is the lift, and the eccentric range, which is the lowering down. Last rep. Okay, that's the first part of the core warm-up done. So now things get a little bit more complex. We're going to go into a crunch, another quad, another plank, and a few different variations of those. So, join me. First of all, it's a crunch. We're thinking ribs to pelvis, but this time the legs are elevated. Now, if you've got tight hamstrings, you might have to bend your knees. If you're flexible, keep your legs ideally vertical. From here, ribs to pelvis, a little crunch. Now, depending how long your arms are, how flexible you are, you might touch your toes, but I don't want you trying to throw yourself up. I want a nice, smooth lift and control on the way down. So my ribs come to the pelvis. After that, there's no more range of motion from the abdominal wall. You'll start over-flexing the lumbar spine, which is not the goal in this workout today. So crunch and control. Another thing I haven't said so far, to help you stabilize your neck, you have deep cervical flexors. Easy way of doing that. If you swallow and hold your tongue where it finishes, reinforce that position, which will be the tongue behind the teeth on the roof of the mouth. And that's going to help you use a better balance of cervical flexors, which are deep muscles, opposed to some of the deeper, more superficial muscles which can get tight. Next movement, from there, we're going to go into a quad crunch. So a quadruped again, except we're going to add some movement to it. So what we're going to be doing is the position we had before, but we're going to be bringing our elbow to our knee. So we reach out, as we did before, but now we bend at the elbow, and we touch the elbow and knee together. Come back to the same position where the spine's parallel to the ground. And again, work to control, don't over-rotate. Only work to the range of motion you've got in your shoulder girdle. And don't lift the leg to the ceiling, push the leg backwards. You're trying to meet your elbow and knee in a line between your hand and your knee on the ground. So if I draw a line here, it's that point where I ideally want to contact the elbow to knee. So I'm not trying to overly flex my knee or overly flex back. We're trying to share the flexion that's changed sides. So we're trying to share the motion of the upper spine and the lumbar spine. Again, as we lift up, don't lift too high. Just feel the glutes engaging. Keep an eye on where you're contacting and try and contact on that imaginary line. Let's do 4 more. Last repetition. Okay, from there, we're now going to a plank rotation. The plank's on the elbows. We're going to be rotating. The goal is to open the shoulder girdle, the chest, and reach the ceiling. You can reach back a few degrees. The key is the arm on the ground, you're trying to open it. So this is the movement. Feet will be shoulder width apart approximately. We're going to rotate. This is the shoulder trying to open. Come down, change sides. Try and keep the feet pointing down towards the ground. So rather than turning and sucked onto your feet, keeping the feet down. They're going to move a little bit, and that's okay. But try to control them. So the rotation comes through the spine, particularly upper spine, thoracic spine, and shoulder girdle. You open the shoulder. Last 4. Last couple. And rest. Okay, next movement. We're going to go into an elbow crunch. So we're using our elbows or our shoulders to drive ourselves up off the ground. So we start in a basic crunch position. Feet flat on the ground, the elbows, that's where the power comes, the shoulder girdle. Take a breath and drive yourself up. Again, if you've got any shoulder problems, maybe skip this one, have a little rest while I'm doing this movement. But if your shoulder's pain free, you should be fine to do the exercise. Trying to avoid the head projecting too far forward. I felt that one start to push forward myself. So I'm thinking the chest leads up, don't start sticking the head forward. Again, swallow, place the tongue on the roof of the mouth, help stabilize the neck. Okay, 4 more. Last rep. Control down. Okay, from there, next one. Some of these exercises we have in the second part of the routine build off of this exercise. We're going to do an easy version. This is Superman. We're going to be using our back muscles to extend our spine. We're going to use the glutes to try and create some lift, bring our legs off the ground slightly, and the shoulder girdle. We're working the muscles that pull the shoulder blades down and back. So we're going to start with an easy version. Rather than a Y position, which some of them have later on, we will do a T position. When you do the movement with the arms, I'm looking to feel your shoulder blades drift together. Look for symmetry. Avoid hunching up in the shoulder, bring your shoulders towards your ears. So we lay face down, arms are in a crucifix. Squeeze the glutes first. Slowly lift up and bring the shoulders, blades together. Control down. Squeeze the glutes, and now try and synchronize the movement, that we reach the top of the movement, extending our spine as the shoulder blades come together. Pause momentarily, control back down. Squeeze, peel yourself off the ground. Now if you feel your back kicking in, you need to rest, or try and work on squeezing your glutes. So if I squeeze the glutes here, it protects my lower back. And also don't lift too high. The rib cage is still on the floor, or the bottom of the ribs. I'm not trying to overextend. If you try to overextend through the spine, your body will not like that. So it's glutes, gently lift, shoulder blades together. Last rep. And also I'm continuously looking down. I don't want to be trying to look up and stress the cervical spine. Next movement. We're going to go into a side plank. This one is a rotation. So you can go on the knees, as we said earlier, so I'll do a few of each. Fingers to temples. We're going to try and bring our elbow towards our hand. And we open back up. So this time the hips stay on the ground, or stay off the ground. I want to make it a little bit harder. Go onto the feet, lift up, and again rotate. So you're trying to think, rotate your upper back, open the chest up as you come back round. Let's do 4 more. 3. Last rep. Okay, let's change sides. Again, we'll do a couple on our knees to start with, and then we'll progress onto the toes. So lift up, bring the elbow to the ground. So for me, it's a little bit tight to one side, so I'm going to go nice and slow. I'm going to try and find the extra flexibility I need. If you're wobbling a bit, place the palm flat down. The top, open the chest up, rotate. Harder version, come onto the feet, drive up. Also helps if you look where you're going, it will help your brain work out how to sequence the muscles to find the rotation you need. Let's do 5 more. Last repetition. And pause. Okay, for home, grab some water. So, we've done the warm-up. We've done 2 levels of core. They got progressively harder. We're now to the final part. This is a bigger circuit. We have, I'm looking at my whiteboard down here, about 12 different exercises, or 12 exercises in a row. 1 or 2 are repeated. So things like strengthening the upper shoulder girdle. If you're sat down at a desk all the time, or if you're homeschooling, we need to try and really strengthen up the postural muscles to help us hold a nice tall spine and avoid a kyphotic posture. So we've got a few sets of what we call YTLs, and there's some other core work thrown in as well. So we're going to start with a sprinter crunch. Now, if you're doing this at home by yourself, you can stop and start the video. You can do as many reps as you feel suitable. If you fatigue, Do some repetitions, take a rest. When you feel recovered slightly, come back and do a few more. I'm going to go by feel. So when I start to feel like I'm fatiguing, then I'll have to take a moment's rest, go to the next one, okay? Adapt it to suit your own level, that's the key point. So first one, sprinter crunch. We're going to go from this position, lengthened, and we're going to rotate, elbow to knee, and alternate. The goal here, lower back flat on the ground. Do not let your back go to extension in reaction to your leg lengthening. Get the sequence right, and then alternate. Now this is a little bit faster pace, because we've already done the warm-up prep. We're already thinking about how to control our lumbar spine, how to keep our core engaged, and how to do this exercise safely. But still, only go as quick as you can coordinate. Let's do 10 more. I count 2 leg movements for 1 rep if you're trying actually counting. And 5 to 4 and 3 and rest. Okay, from there, YTLs. So we've done the Superman with a T shape in the shoulder girdle. The Y refers to this position, thumbs point up. The T, we transition from a Y to a T position, palms are face down. The L, the elbows come in. If you're quite tight in the shoulders, your hands will be a bit lower than your torso, that's fine. If you're very flexible, you'll have a more external rotation. But as we come from the T, simply bring the elbows in, feel the shoulders come together, and also slightly downwards. And then from there, we will feed back into the Y, back into the T, back into the L. Key throughout the movement, if you feel your back kick in, rest. If you feel you start losing the range of motion, you can't keep your hands as high, take a little bit of a rest. So let's go into YTLs. Again, squeeze the glutes. I lift, Y, T, and the L. Now I'm adding a Superman component with my legs, but you could, if you want, leave the legs on the ground and focus on the shoulder girdle. Let's do a few of each. So I still squeeze the glutes, shoulder blades coming together throughout. The Y, thumbs are up, keep looking at the floor throughout, and keep the bottom ribs on the ground. Y, T, L. If you wish, you could rest between reps, take a moment out, then come back, or you could just stay up there continuously in either variation with the Superman with the legs up, or just with the legs on the ground, a slightly easier version. Let's do 5 more. Last couple. Keep looking down, keep aligning your cervical spine, your neck. Last rep. Nice high hands. And rest. So we come back to YTLs. I think we have 3 sets of YTLs in total. Next one, side plank, progression low. We're going to be crunching our elbow and knee together. You can do the easy version on the knees if you wish. From here, I'll do a few of each. We're going to crunch the same side. Keep the fingers on the temples, elbow and knee touch. Harder version. And back out, open the chest up. And if you do a few of each, you start fatiguing, then you go back onto the knees and carry on. Or just rest completely. Let's do 4 more. Okay, switch over. So fatigue on that might be the shoulder starts fatiguing. It could be for your hips start dropping down, you can't maintain the height. Whichever it is, that'll be the point where you decide to rest. So, back in. If I go onto the feet, we'll do the easier version. Sorry, harder version. Sorry, I'm a bit of noise in the background here, guys, I apologise. If you can hear what's happening in the background. So again, I open the shoulders up, I flex, and I open. Again, try and synchronise the movement, that my foot comes back to the ground. At the same time, as I get back to the start position, my shoulder girdle. Let's do 3 more. and rest. Okay, next one, a little bit easier. So we're keeping moving, but we're going to go to an easier version to ourselves, a little bit of recovery. We're going to do wipers, easy version. It's just the knees. We come across, palms face up, shoulders down the ground. Do not let the shoulder lift in the opposing side. So if I'm going to my left, I'm going to keep my right shoulder down. Harder version, be my legs straighter. Now if you go for the harder version, as I go to my left shoulder has to work really hard to stabilise and to help create some drive, which I can use my core, my oblique muscles, to come back. So the key is control. You also must make sure your knees do not drop away from you. If that happens, your spine will go to extension, and extension and rotation mixed together is high risk. We do not want to put your back at risk of injury, otherwise you become see me as an osteopath for help. So let's prevent that by keeping it neutral or very slightly flexed. And we keep control, that's the most important thing. If you start fatiguing, bend the knees and carry on, go to the easier level. Or just rest, and then when you've recovered a little bit, come back in and do a few more. As you can hear in my voice, with the trembling, this is not easy. I'm a bit fatigued from the workout so far. However, I can keep my technique safe and effective. And I can think about what's happening. If I feel I lose that quality of movement, I rest. From there, next one. We are going to go into, we've got a plank. You see which version we've got with a hand plank. So, we are going to go into a plank. We're on our hands this time. And we're going to bring our knees to our elbow. When you're in a plank, slightly tuck under, like a hollow position, okay? So it's ribs and pelvis together. That's going to keep your lower abdominal fibers working, your internal obliques and the lower fibers of rectus abdominis. That's more desirable. So from here, keep a hollow, and then touch the elbow to the knee, or knee to elbow even. Now I have to flex forward slightly, so I've slightly transferred my weight into my shoulders to help me get the touch. If you can't touch, it doesn't matter. So if I just come to position, maybe I only get there, that's okay. But keep your hollow position and work the range of motion which your hips can achieve and your shoulder girdle can deal with. Let's do 6 more. Last rep, and rest. Okay, we are back into YTLs. Choose the version you wish, whether it's just going to be the legs passive and just squeeze the glutes, and then the YTL. If your shoulders struggle with a Y, if you're a little bit flexed with the spine, you can't get your arms back far enough, just stick with the T and the L phases of the movement. Choose a version that suits, adapt if you fatigue, and let's go into it. I'm going to choose the conservative version. My legs will stand the ground, I'll squeeze my glutes, and I go the Y, the T, to the L. But I'll stay on the ground, off the ground each rep. So I'm going to try and build up the endurance of my erector muscles in my spine by not resting between reps. Nice high hands. Now be aware of the height you can get. If you start feeling you lose range, that's an indication you are fatiguing. Thumbs up on the Y, palms down the T, elbows squeezed in the L. Okay, if you're fatiguing, take a little rest out, then come back in. Choose a variation that's best for yourself. And keep reinforcing, squeezing the glutes. Let's do 4 more. Last 2. And rest. Okay, from there, we are back into a side plank, I believe. Bear with me. So we're going to do the side plank we did earlier, where the knee and the elbow came together in a crunch. If you stayed on the knee version before, do the same again. If you do the more advanced version, on the toes and the elbow, do that version. Lift up, flex the hip, but also the upper spine. So it's a little half crunch from the rib cage or the thoracics. Open up at the top position to release that shoulder, open the chest. Also keep the foot up, don't let the foot roll onto the ankle. The ankle should not touch the ground. Let's do 6 more. Last couple. And rest. Do you want to see that's my limit? If you can do a lot more, great, do more reps. So again, elbow, and then it's whether you want to go to the knee or the foot, and back in. Let's do 5 more. Last one. Okay, rest. Next one, elbow crunches. We're not giving you rest. Straight in, elbows drive down, take a little breath, and drive. So using the strength of the shoulder girdle here to make your abs work a little bit harder. Again, try and keep the chin from projecting forward, avoid that. Swallow, place the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and just don't let yourself stick your head forward. Think chest leads. Little pause at the top position. Let's do 5 more. Last 2. Last rep. And troll down. Okay, next one. We're back into wipers. So, rotational movement, palms open. Either keep the knees flexed, but keep the thigh vertical. If you're more flexible, go into a straight leg version. If you run out of room like I have, just shuffle over. So we're going to control the lumbar. We're going to feel the obliques work on this side. As I go to my right and I push back to my left, I'll feel my shoulder girdle working. So again, it's a lot of upper back today in this workout. So a lot of those stabilizer muscles that tend to get weak when we sit at our computer too much. So we're trying to strengthen up not just the core, but all the important stabilizer muscles that tend to get weak. They're the muscles I have to treat in clinic when people lose, or when people's posture is affected and muscles get overloaded because they're weak or in poor positions in terms of the shoulder mechanics. So let's do another 8. Keep the palms up. Last 6. Okay, if you start fatiguing, rest. Just because I'm doing a certain amount of reps, it doesn't mean you need to. On the flip side, if you're a lot stronger than I am, you have more endurance, and I'm sure some of you do have, then carry on, do some extra reps. Last couple. Last rep. And rest. From there, we are back into the 3rd set of YTLs. If you're fatiguing now and you can't get the height of the Y or the T, or you struggle, your lower back's kicking in, modify what you're doing. Make it a version that you can still do really, really well. Glutes are squeezed, Y, T, into the L. Keep the nose pointing towards the floor, keep the glutes engaged, and feel that your bottom ribs are still touching the ground. It's not about how high you can lift your shoulders off the ground, it's about how high you can keep your hands off the ground. That's the key point here. And we're looking for symmetry. We're looking for both arms to be the same height. We're looking for the shoulder blades to move symmetrically. We're trying to avoid the shoulders hunching their way up towards your neck and your ears. So try to keep the shoulder blades depressed and adducted. Let's do 4 more. Last couple. Last one. And rest. And then from there we are into a crunch. As we began the circuit, our feet elevated. We're now going to have to slow it right down to think about keeping the quality of movement. So a slower tempo, ribs to pelvis, and control back down. Do not let the legs go away from you. Keep the thigh vertical. Add a little pause in the top position. And control. Again, try and keep the chin the same distance from the torso at all times. So I'm not letting my chin stick forward. So I lift up as a unit. So it's all pulling through that abdominal wall, your rectus abdominis, your six pack, and your internal obliques, as well as your externals. Let's do 6 more. Little pause at the top. If you find yourself starting to try and compensate, start losing quality, slow it down, keep the quality of movement. And if you can't correct it, you're fatigued, you should be resting. Last rep, add a pause, and lower down. Okay, ladies and gents, we're going to go down to a cool down. So, if you have a cool down you want to do already, i.e. you normally foam roll, or you know there's particular things in your body that you should be working on flexibility, great, you can go through those. I'm going to take you through 4 core stretches. Quite a few of you have done those already. 4 core stretches, predominantly working on everything but sort of below your rib cage into your upper thigh, okay? So, first one, we are going to sit. I'm going to use the floor as a reference point. So if I line my, let's line the elbow up with the mat. So here, if I draw a line from my body between my foot, my hip and my elbow on a straight line, then I rotate the pelvis forward. Now what you can't see in this position is I'm bringing my back foot close into my buttock. If that's too much of a stretch for you in the front of the thigh, you can start in this position. But your progression would be to try and bring the foot closer. So we're going to try and maintain the pelvis rotated slightly forward, so the stretch becomes quad. Make sure the elbow is back far enough, ideally as I said earlier. If I draw a line between my knee, my hip and my elbow, a nice straight line. Once we've got a nice stretch there, relaxing down a bit, we're going to add to it. So the addition to it is you are going to bring your arm up and reach slightly. Now, ideally I'm not going to rotate left or right, so I'm not dropping down or back. We're just going to try and stretch out the lats. They're a bridge between the arm and the spine. We're going to breathe. Now all the breathing on these movements should be a slow breath in through the nose. Try and breathe into the abdomen. Exhale out through the mouth. And as you release the tension, try and drop a bit further in your stretch. You're trying to time your movement with your exhalation. Breath in, drop a bit further. Now the drop could be here, it could be the pelvis. When we've stretched out this component, we are going to keep our hand low to the ground and we're going to sweep ourselves around until our hands are either side of our knee. I'm just going to move around for the sake of the camera. My goal now is to lie, first of all, my belly button on my thigh. I'm keeping the same leg position, so I've got my foot tucked into my heel still, on my bottom. And I start with every exhalation, try and bring my torso closer to my leg. Now some of you are really flexible and get down quickly. It's not the goal though. The goal is to listen to the first tissue barrier. So the first point of stretch I have is here. And then I release when that tissue releases. Take a breath. As I exhale, drop a bit lower. Until you can get the position that you're able to put your elbows on the floor comfortably and your head can drop down. Now depending on how long your legs are, how short your spine is, some of you will be able to get your head to the floor, some of you your knee will get in the way, it doesn't matter. Just try and stretch the glute here and what other muscles in the spine you'll feel in the stretch. Last couple of breaths. Let the head hang. Now, transition. We're going to keep low and we are going to walk round towards the leg that's in front of us on the floor. Now I'm going to just orientate myself to the mat so I can explain a bit more clearly. So the moment I have my thigh square to this mat. You're going to put your hands in a square shape i.e. if I draw the dots, dot 1 is my knee, dot 2 is my hip, dot 3 is this hand, dot 4 is that hand. Now where this hand is, put your elbow. Most of you can get that position really easily. Then we're going to try and get this elbow down. Now rather than forcing it down, which I could do, I'm going to breathe. And as I exhale, it's not quite ready to go there yet, I'm going to try and let the body accommodate the flexibility or the range of motion until I can comfortably get my elbows to the ground. Once you've got your elbows to the ground, you can let them move out a bit wider. And the goal is to bring the ribcage to the ground. But we're not forcing this. You are going with the first tissue barrier. So wherever the next tissue barrier is, you pause, you breathe, you relax, you wait for it to release. Over a period of a minute or two, you'll try to get to the point where you can lay your ribcage on the ground and you'll be looking forward towards the knee that's on the ground. Also, if this leg here, this thigh starts peeling off the ground, try and pin it down. You can even use your foot here to trap it because that's going to stretch the lateral part of the hip. Now when we come out of this stretch, we're going to use our hands, okay? We're going to do a little half push-up. We're going to try and keep those back muscles as relaxed as possible. And then we're going to switch over sides. So, again, I'm going to bring my heel to my bottom on my back leg. So that's the quad stretch. My front leg, or my leg here is blocked out by the foot of my front leg. From here I'm going to try and open the pelvis. So I'm trying to rotate my pelvis. Imagine you've got a set of headlights on your pelvis. You're going to make sure your headlights point forward and not upwards. And this elbow will be lined up. So if I draw a line between my knee, my hip and my shoulder, the elbow's on that line. If you haven't got that, you're too far forward, you will think, what stretch is this? If you're too far back, you will overextend your lumbar spine. The focus is this, it's the thigh. It's not about overly stressing other regions. So breathe, relax, reinforce the stretch. If there's not a lot of stretch going on, you can jump straight to the next level. If you're tighter, I suggest hanging out here for a bit longer. Maintain whatever stretch you have here though, before you add the transition of the next part. So this is the second stretch in the forecore. This is now lateral line. So I'm stretching actually from my knee, lateral hip through ribcage. Breathe and relax here. You can add some variations here. If I was to slightly rotate and reach forward, it will pick up my back muscles. If I was to slightly rotate back a little bit, it will slightly pick up more the anterior abdominal wall. So you can play around those variations once you get used to doing these stretches. And they're really useful stretches, particularly anyone who has any lower back problems. They really help balance out the structures around the pelvis and counteract some of the muscles that get tight when you sit down, particularly the quadratus lumboris, which is the last part of this forecore. So let's go to the glute one now. We're going to walk low round, or as low as you can go, until your hands are either side of your knee. Again, for purpose demonstration, I'm going to spin around a little bit. And then from there, we're going to think about laying our belly button down. First tissue barrier is going to be the stretch on the glute on the leg you are lying on. Breathe, exhale. Think about lengthening your spine as you lay down. So I'm going to try and tuck. Try and lengthen your spine, laying down vertebra by vertebra, until you finally run out of range of motion because you're now laying on your leg. Even here, if you need to breathe and get a nice breath in the stomach, you can just lift a little bit before you then drop and release into the stretch. I let myself breathe, lift up a little fraction, create space, drop. And the final part, let the head hang, but keep the breathing pattern, nice, slow, relaxed breath, into the nose, out through the mouth. And the final part of the four is we're going to walk around. I'm going to walk around, then I'll change position for the camera. So I'm going to sweep around until I have my hands parallel to my thigh. So just for your benefit, you see more clearly. So that imaginary box again, I draw the imaginary dot to the box. That ensures I've got a good relationship of stretching the lower back, getting the rotations I want in the spine. The elbow on the back near the hip, I drop the elbow down rather than the hand there. And the goal is to get this elbow down. Then my first tissue barrier is there, so I'm going to hang out here for a minute. Breathe into the abdomen. As you exhale, try and get a bit lower. Don't force it down. I could just get to the ground easily, but that's not a relaxing stretch. That's just bullying my muscles into an end range, which is not going to help it relax and accommodate the flexibility. So it's breathing, it's relaxing. Ultimately trying to tell your nervous system it's okay to have this range of motion in the tissue. Breath in. And this one particularly, if you're struggling to get the breath in, lift out of the stretch slightly to breathe, and then drop back into new tissue barrier as you exhale. And then just follow that process on until you've got end range. And if you have a difference on the flexibility left to right, it's really important that you try and balance these two out over a period of time. So I'll let my elbows get a bit wider, I'll try and bring my head to the ground. I'm going to rotate my head towards the front leg, so the leg that's on the ground, the right one. So I'm pointing my head to line up with the thigh. Create a bit of space to breathe. Drop down, exhale. And you can just hang out and have a little sleep down there. And ladies and gents, use your hands to push yourself up. Ladies and gents, thank you for joining me. That is the day, end of today's class. Thank you for your time.